Hey there, happy Wellness Wednesday. This is Dr. Brooke Goldner from Goodbye Lupus, and we are back for the second half of the session that I did with Thomas Tadlock, my partner in all things, in my love, and also a specialist in not only disease reversal, but in fitness, muscle building, fat loss. And he is back answering your top questions about weight, healthy weight. When should I gain weight? How should I do it? Fat loss, all those things that really matter to you that you ask me about all the time. I'm going to ask him and let him give you those answers. If you missed the first half, check back on the post from last Wednesday. I hope you enjoy it. And let's go ahead and see what Thomas has to say. So one of the biggest things that's in your book, Miracle Metabolism, and that I haven't really heard anyone else talk about, is how there's different types of exercise that you do if you're trying to lose fat versus exercise you're doing when you're trying to gain muscle. Right. A lot of the folks I see have osteoporosis. And with osteoporosis, you need to increase your muscle strength, your muscle density. And when patients hear from their doctors, oh, you have osteoporosis, you need to get stronger, they walk. And I have to tell them, that's not going to fix your bones. It's not going to work. Walk, enjoy your self-care, but it's not going to work. So if you could just give like a quick rundown of exercise, what exercise looks like for people who are trying to get stronger versus people who are trying to burn fat.
That's okay, good. So burning fat, the name of the game is
Name it.
Calorie burn.
All right.
You're trying to just expend as many calories as you possibly can. And as an added bonus, there's when you're burning fat, there's nothing wrong with also doing muscle building exercises because you get the benefit of afterburn, which is when your body is rebuilding its muscle tissue. A lot of the energy that's used for that process comes from stored body fat. So
love it.
So with fat burn, you can do high intensity cardio, you can do low intensity cardio, you can do weight training, you can do everything you want, as long as it's just, all we're trying to do is just spam quantity when it comes to calorie burning in order to achieve fat loss. It's just spamming volume and quantity of calories burned. Muscle building is the process of deliberately trying to create little itty bitty bits of damage in the muscle, allowing it to fully recover, and then hitting it again, damaging it again, and then just kind of repeating that process.
What does that do? What is the damage? Because that might sound scary to people. You're damaging your muscle.
Oh yeah. If you've ever been sore after a workout, I'm
sore right now.
That's the damage.
This whole area.
So that comes from heavy lifting and then doing as many reps as it takes until you can no longer lift it anymore. That's called training until muscular failure. That means that you're doing bicep curls and then you get to the last one, you're doing this, and you literally can't lift it up anymore. The muscle has failed to fully contract. That's muscular failure. And that's an ideal state for muscle to be in, because when you go into that failure state, the muscle right there, right at that moment, you're creating little microscopic bits of damage, little itty bitty microscopic tears, and your body's rebuilding process makes that area of tissue stronger. So muscle building is a whole different strategy, but the exercises don't have to be different. So anyway, and how that relates to osteoporosis, when you're trying to strengthen your bones, it's actually not very different than the process of building muscle. What you're trying to do is put a lot of stress on the bone, but not in a way where it's dangerous, but in a way where it stimulates it to get more dense. And in order to do that, you need resistance. Mm-hmm. So when you have osteopenia or osteoporosis, this is important. It is possible, your bones are weaker. We know that for a fact. Mm-hmm. So we want to apply resistance, but not in a way where we're putting you at risk of breaking it. Mm-hmm. So what we want to do is stay away from a term, what we call ballistic movements. Ballistic movements are jumping and landing, things that are very violent type of movements. So you'll see this in athletics. When you watch professional or any sports athletes, the way they practice, there's a lot of jumping and exploding, and explosion is the key term. Like, you want to just output as much force as humanly possible. Just violently contract your muscles so that you can spring up, jump with a lot of speed. You definitely don't want to do that when you're trying to reverse osteoporosis or osteopenia. So the name of the game is we want high resistance, but under a lot of control. So you want to eliminate momentum. So all I do when I'm working with my osteoporosis folks, I say, okay, you're going to go through and do all of the exercises in the gym, except for the exercises that stress any particular bones that are in really bad shape. Let's say you got bad vertebrae. It's like Swiss cheese right now. Okay, we're going to not load your spine. We're going to do everything else except exercises that put undue stress on your spine. But to try to increase the osteoporosis, you're going to do the biceps, the triceps, the shoulders, all those things, but in a slow, controlled tempo. So the one I like to use the best is what's called a 2-1-2 tempo. It's 1,000, 2, 1,000 out, 1,000, 2, 1,000 in, and then the pauses that are at the top and the bottom of every exercise, 1 second. 1,000, and then 1,000, 2, 1,000 with a pause, 1,000, 1,000, 2, 1,000 with another pause. You do that with every single exercise, you're going to be safe. And increase the weight so that you basically completely gas out anywhere between 8 and 20 repetitions. You do that, you're going to be safe. You're going to build strength doing that. You're going to also see your bones get a lot stronger. Combine that with a good diet, of course.
Yeah, we've had multiple people do our rapid recovery group and reverse osteoporosis, but it's the diet and they have to do the fitness training. So perfect.
Agreed.
Okay. So one of the biggest things that I see online, we have our Goodbye Lupus protocol, and it's a raw vegetable omega-3 water-based protocol. Of course, people can have, other types of vegetables and fruits and things like that. But people are often scared to do it all the time. I think in every Q&A I do, I have at least one person, if not more, say, I really need to do this program because I'm really, really sick. I've got lupus, I've got MS, but I'm so skinny, I'm afraid to do it because I think I'm going to lose too much weight.
Right.
And I try to, help them and say, listen, you're not skinny because of our protocol. You're skinny because of your disease, your deconditioning, et cetera. But there are people who are terrified that they're going to get too skinny. And that phrase, too skinny, right? And so I thought maybe you can give some of your, your knowledge and help people understand why they don't have to be afraid of getting too skinny.
Yeah, it's something I battle with constantly because it's not based on anything real. So here's what I mean. So I start by asking, I'm just curious. I'm like, why would you be afraid of losing body fat? This part is not making any sense because you're going to lose a lot of weight when you go from eating a diet that got you sick to our protocol, which is aggressively anti-inflammatory. So there's two things that we already know that's going to happen. You're going to lose weight just because of the large difference in the type of foods that you're eating right now. You're eating the healthiest that you've ever eaten, and a lot of the foods that you're eating just don't contain the same level of unproductive fats and carbohydrates that you used to eat before. You're going to obviously lose some weight from that. The second thing is the inflammation, which is a good thing.
Yes. I mean, people don't realize inflammation is
weight. You go on the protocol and you're going to start dropping weight. If you are coming in with a high amount of inflammation, what that means is cellularly, systemically, your cells are uptaking more fluid than they should. It's just like any bruise on your body, just like any injury, it's puffed up. And you're going to see a drop in that because your cells are going to start returning to their normal size, releasing a whole lot of fluid that, it doesn't need to uptake anymore.
Right.
So
when we see people, in a week in our group, they can put their rings on again. That weight, that fluid, that edema, that's weight.
We've seen that account for 5 to 20 pounds easily.
Depending on the person.
Depending on the person, what's going on with their body, even medications that they're on that they get to go off of, and then all of a sudden they see a dramatic drop in weight. So I wish I could relate to why they feel terrified. And what I usually gather is when I ask people, they usually can't give me a straight answer. Why? They don't
fear. It's not logic. It's
like, well, why are you losing weight? They're like, well, I'm afraid of becoming unhealthy. I said, well, where'd you even get that idea from that you're going to be unhealthy just because you've lost body fat? But they're not interpreting it that way. What they think, what's going on is they're kind of associating a rapid loss in body weight with all of the terrible stories they've heard that's associated.
Diseases, like people get cancer.
I was going to say that. Yeah. So someone gets cancer, you get a terrible tumor. The tumor is competing for the nutrition in your body, and all of a sudden they start losing rapid amounts of weight. Now that's a valid reason to be scared, but that's not actually what's happening. The second thing that they fear is when you hear about people that have eating disorders and they stop eating a lot of food or any food at all, and they drop a whole lot of body weight. Obviously, they get all these different diseases that come with that, and all their organ failure and things like that happen with the dramatic loss in weight. But this is not the same situation because those people are losing weight as a result of malnutrition.
Right.
Folks that are losing rapid weight from cancer are also losing weight as a result of malnutrition, not from dietary ingestion, but because they have basically almost another organism competing for that nutrition, stealing it from them. So both cases is weight loss coming from malnutrition. And malnutrition.
I can add one, too, is that for a lot of the folks that come to me, they have not been able to move around much. And so they have lost weight from your muscle. If you don't exercise, you will lose weight from muscle tissue. And so for a lot of them, it's not even their fault. Their doctor will say, you've lost too much weight and you need to gain weight. And they'll give them those ultra processed shakes and stuff like that, which just puts on fat. And they'll tell them, no, don't go on that raw vegetable program. You're going to lose too much weight and you're already too skinny. So it's, sometimes it's external or it's their grandma. My grandmother always told me I'm too skinny now. She liked me when I was bigger and had lupus, so there's a lot of reasons why. But I think you do a really great job of explaining too about the different types of fat, why we don't have to be worried about that, why we won't lose more than we need to. Right? Because I think the other thing people are afraid of is if I lose weight, it's going to continue at the same rate until I disappear versus there being an initial drop and then a steadying. There's a lot of complicating factors, of course, and everyone's different in terms of what the situation is. But if you could explain why someone who's already thin would still be safe doing something like our protocol on raw foods, that they won't lose too much weight.
Yeah. Okay. I think the biggest fear, so there's the common fear that something unknown as bad is happening when they lose all of this weight. They see all this weight because what happens is the comments from their social circle start coming in and people are like, oh, you're losing too much weight. Meanwhile, those people are just ripping on them because it's making them self-conscious about their own weight loss issues. And then the person who's losing the weight is misinterpreting that to mean that something really bad is happening to their health. It's not. It's actually, when you go on a protocol like ours, you're eating more nutrition than you probably ever have. Mm-hmm. So when you see the weight coming off, you got to interpret that as, oh, weight loss is instead of interpreting fast weight loss as unhealthy, what you have to do is interpret it that, oh, this is what it looks like when I finally get healthy. Interesting. So what typically happens is you lose all of this body weight and people start seeing that their arms are skinnier than they've ever seen and their face looks skinnier and their legs get skinnier and they interpret that as them becoming frail.
Right.
And frail is associated with being weak and having a lack of muscle. And they start seeing this fat go away, but in their minds, they think that's their muscle going away. Right. And the correct way to interpret that is no, it is not. That's actually how little muscle you've always had since you've had this disease or issue. The loss of body fat is now revealing how little muscle you've had.
So what you're saying is they're losing fat, they're not losing muscle.
That's exactly right. They're losing fat and inflammation. It's not the muscle that they're losing. And I know this because we put professional athletes on this protocol, and I had a professional athletes set 2 personal records in 4 weeks while also completely reversing their lupus at the same time. So we know it's not.
So she leaned down a little bit, but then she was getting stronger, faster.
You can't set a personal strength and strength endurance record while losing muscle at the same time. It's just physically not possible.
People are always trying to tell me, I've got to add more protein to your protocol because I don't want to lose my muscle. I had somebody who was in kidney failure working with me, and she was on we have a special protocol for people in kidney failure because we have to really limit their potassium, this and that. And she was scared because she leaned down. And she was telling me, I don't know if I can keep doing this. Even though her kidney function had almost doubled in a month, they said, I don't know if I can keep doing this because I'm getting too skinny. I'm losing too much muscle. And I said, you see a personal trainer every week. What does your personal trainer say? She goes, my personal trainer says I'm getting stronger every week. So I said, you can't lose muscle and get stronger. Your trainer's saying you're stronger than ever, but you're leaner. So it's like you're just ripped. That's what we call it, right? It's ripped when you can see the lines around the muscles, but it is something that scares people. So the most important thing is, you can lose fat, you can lose inflammation, but you're not going to lose your muscle tissue by hyper nourishing. You might reveal it though and find out you don't have much sitting there. Yeah.
So a lot of times when we get down to it, the real reason is a lot of people are just afraid aesthetically for what they look like as they start shrinking that body fat. I don't know. Being more curvy has become very trendy, especially in the United States, and a lot of people kind of miss that. Like, so they start seeing their curves shrink down a little bit. My answer to that is, you know what? Get healthy, get rid of your disease. And if you really want to put on body fat that badly, well, you can work on doing that after you fix your disease, and then you can do it by overeating healthy foods. If that's what you want to do.
It is easy to change it later. I had one client who was able to get off steroids for the first time in 30 years. She did rapid recovery with me privately. She had autoimmune disease in her lungs. First time in 30 years, got off of the steroids, and she was running every day. Someone who could barely get around, running every day. So she leaned out really well. And she looked like a fitness model. She was so ripped. Mm-hmm. And her doctor kept saying, I don't like you at this weight. Now, you lose weight and then it stabilizes,
yeah.
So she was at this new weight, off steroids, running every day, someone with multiple autoimmune diseases, feeling great. And her doctor's answer was, I don't know, I think you should be, according to BMI, you should be 5 pounds heavy or whatever. And finally, as he saw her getting off her meds and getting stronger and healthier, one day he said, maybe you're just healthier when you're this weight. I was like, finally, he sees it, and that's also because why the BMI is just not a helpful thing to do.
I think the real, the problem there was the real disease is not in the weight of the patient, but was the commitment to upholding the ideology in the doctor.
Yes.
I mean, when you've got someone literally right in front of you, that's the picture of health, and they can't see it. That's a bigger problem.
Yeah, well, real science is believing what you see, but a lot of people will try to make what they see match what they believe, and they're contorting reality to try to fit their beliefs. But, there's been a lot of studies now, and I've done videos about this, about why the BMI scale is not useful. And it's actually hurting people when they're using it. But I actually have been having people come to me now saying, hey, they're actually underweight, and I could say they're underweight, they're like 95 pounds or something. And they said, but I still have fat to lose. And I say, now, why would you say that? Well, the BMI says I'm underweight, but I had an MRI that showed I have fat coating all of my organs. So I actually need to lose fat to get healthy. And I went, oh my God, this is real science now, and people don't realize that you can be skinny fat,
Yeah, you got to understand. So BMI, that's something, I can't believe it's been 2 decades. Three decades later, I'm still constantly trying to educate people on the BMI and
doctors are still using it.
What that's useful for. So BMI is useful where it's useful. And so let me help you understand why BMI exists and what it's useful for. BMI was a statistical tool. Mm-hmm. It's a very quick and dirty regression analysis that was done so that somebody can analyze the persistence or the existence of obesity levels in different populations. That's all it is. So you ever notice that every time you go to the doctor, every checkup, what do? They take your body weight every single time you go into the doctor. I don't know if you've noticed that. And they also have your height on record. So those are 2 pieces of information where they said, okay, if we wanted to know what is the general population statistic for the rate of obesity in Butler County, Pennsylvania. They've got the stats because they have everybody's body weights and they have the whole general population's heights, and they can use BMI to estimate what percentage of that population is most likely obese, not obese, underweight, so on and so forth. That's all that is for, so that you can quickly estimate what the rates of obesity and therefore the potential incidence of disease and obesity-related diseases in any particular region of the United States. That's what BMI is really for. It's not something that predicts what your future health or aesthetic goals could potentially be. Because if you do the BMI on any athlete, any fit person, it usually puts them as morbidly obese.
Because the
muscle mass is so predominant in their body. So you never want to use BMI to know if you're on the right track. It's just not even what it was ever created for. It's the wrong tool.
Yes, and it makes people so scared.
Yeah.
All right, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you so much. All right, let's see if there's anything else. Okay. All right. So this is one that can be confusing for people. We talk a lot about how the miracle metabolism protocol or our hypernourishment protocol, how it can really help people optimize things like fat loss, right? For most folks, fat loss is something they need, and it also helps people with disease reversal. But when people have asked me before on my Wellness Wednesdays or private consultations about the best foods for fat loss, we'll tell them, get in your omega-3 fatty acids, cruciferous vegetables for your metabolism, but also you could have unlimited vegetables, even cooked, and it won't hurt your fat loss, right?
Right.
But then I get asked about, well, what about starches, potatoes, grains? And I will say, if you're really trying to burn fat, limit those. But then I'll get a comment, well, what about the people who've lost weight on starch-based diets and say potatoes worked for their weight loss? And so what would you say to that? Why is it that some people can get really skinny eating potatoes and other people are at risk of not losing fat or getting fatter eating them? What's the deal with it?
Okay. So what I say to those people is the potatoes actually didn't do it.
It's not the potatoes?
Lost. So here's the name of the game when it comes to fat loss.
Okay.
When it comes to the nutrition and not looking at any health type of stuff at all, like what it comes down to is we're trying to minimize the amount of insulin response we get from the foods that we eat. So if we can keep our insulin as neutral and low as humanly possible, we can remain in a state of fat loss. Because the moment you spike insulin up, then the fat loss the fat loss stops in your body right at that point. And what happens is, when that insulin is present, your muscle cells uptake all that excess blood sugar. And once the muscle cells start bringing in that blood sugar, your adipose tissue, those are your fat cells, and your muscle cells are bringing that in and growing a little bit. So that's why every time there's a big insulin spike, you're actually filling your fat cells a little more. You're actually feeding those fat cells right at that moment in time. So there's no way really around this. You eat white potatoes and it in most people, unless you're genetically gifted and you just don't get an insulin response, you get a big spike of insulin way more than any other type of raw vegetable that you could possibly eat. So when it comes to reducing the occurrence of big insulin spikes, which promotes fat gain, you can't beat raw vegetables. Like a potato will never hold a flame up to raw vegetables and its ability to do that. So the people that are eating potatoes and losing weight, all that's telling me is that the total quantity of potatoes is, in terms of energetic value, is still less than the amount of energy they're expending.
They're working out more.
That's all it is. So what I'm willing to bet is if I were to put them on raw vegetables and eliminate the potatoes, they would have achieved the same results in probably a fraction of the time.
I know that when I switched from fat loss when we were getting ready for a wedding and I accidentally got rid of lupus, right? I was doing the raw vegetables, everything. And then when I wanted to switch into like plumping the muscles up, getting muscle building, I started by adding potato to each meal. So I kept my raw veggies and then I added my potato, which was very fun to add to it, to start to try to get bigger. And it made my muscles more plump and all that. But that was like my first step towards gaining weight when I was ready to put on muscle and all of that. Yeah. So, and it worked really well.
So here's a little secret for some of you that you might not know. So a lot of bodybuilders will purposely eat foods like potatoes about the night before a contest. So they'll basically deplete themselves of carbohydrates and they put their muscles in this total carbohydrate depleted state. And what happens is it's really effective for losing body fat, but it deflates the muscles and it makes them look smaller and scrawnier and weaker. But if you ingest a lot of high insulin spiking foods the day before, potatoes being a very popular one, you eat all of this, we call it carb loading. What happens is you get this big shot of insulin, which drives all of this excess carbohydrate into your muscles. When you do that after being in a prolonged period of carbohydrate depletion, what happens is this effect called supercompensation. Your muscles actually fill up with a higher capacity of glycogen than it normally does, and it makes the muscles bigger than they've ever been. And it's a hack. Yeah, it's a hack. And so even though when that's happening, they are storing a little bit of fat. They are actually technically getting a little bit fatter because when you store muscle glycogen, some of it is going to increasing the size of your adipose tissue, but it's only one day. So it's so insignificant that you can't even measure it. And that the the blow up of the muscle just completely overshadows any amount of fat that's being gained during that time. And so they look leaner and harder and more impressive than they do. But it only lasts for like a day or two.
So probably not something practical for most of us.
No.
But a really cool fun fact.
Yeah.
And I like the way, one of the things that's in his book, Miracle Metabolism, is how to compensate for that. You know, if you want to, like your zigzag approaches, stuff like that, that you can kind of eat to gain muscle and still burn body fat. There's all these cool techniques and stuff in there, but that solves the potato mystery. So it's really about what you start out with. It's calories burned, input, output. And so if you really want it and you're trying to lose fat, just get the workout in.
Yeah.
Sounds like that's a big deal. All right. All right. Let's see if you have anything for this. What would you say day to day, whether it's working in our group or just your own private clients, what's the biggest kind of myth or thing that people get wrong when it comes to either nutrition or fitness or both?
Okay. So a lot of folks I know, I hear this a lot. A lot of people are always concerned with, are we getting enough calories on the protocol?
Oh, yeah.
The second thing is, are we getting enough protein on
every day we hear that. Yep.
Yeah. So if you've been paying attention to what's going on in nutrition, a lot of the guidelines for how much protein an individual needs is actually being rewritten as we speak. So when I conducted my bodybuilding experience back in the day, I was, to my pleasant surprise, able to build the same amount of muscle on half of the amount of protein that it used to take me when I was eating animal products.
When you switched to plant-based?
When I switched to plant-based, yeah. So for example, it used to take me about 225 to 250 grams of protein per day for me to get like significant muscle increases. And when I went plant-based, I was able to pull it off on as little as 90 to 110 grams per day. That's half, which was amazing, because trying to eat 225 grams or more of protein from meat and whey protein, oh my gosh, it was exhausted. It felt disgusting all the time. So being able to cut that in half was like a godsend. But that's one thing. That's for hardcore bodybuilding. For like your basic everyday needs, I mean, even the RDA is 50 grams a day, and we're finding that like it's actually for a person to just basically get away with like what they need for their basic healthy function. It's even less than that, depending on the size of the person that you are. Absolutely. So the amount that's required is it's so much less than what we used to think.
And I love your hack for how people can tell if they're getting enough protein for their muscles. You don't need to get tests or measurements. What do you need to do if you want to know, am I getting enough protein to support my exercise and for my muscles? How do you know? What's the quick way that you know the answer?
If you're measuring your strength gains at the gym, which I recommend everybody do, document so that you're not just kind of winging it or trying to remember how strong you're getting, is document your strength gains and you'll be able to see it. But the one thing you got to be careful of is like your strength can go down if you're having too little carbohydrates. Mm-hmm. So rule out the carbohydrate problem. Maybe when you're conducting this experiment to wonder, am I getting weaker because I have too little protein? That might be the week that you have a lot of potatoes. So that way you just fill up those glycogen stores and you can rule out the idea that you might be under carbohydrated during that time.
Yeah, we find just increasing cruciferous vegetables raw usually gives people what they need.
Well, I mean, like I said, I've got professional athletes setting PRs on our protocols.
On the raw vegetables, yeah.
Yeah, so you just, it's like the protein argument falls flat just because we've got results at scale that just totally contradict that idea.
Yeah, and that's the results are what matters, right? And most diseases people suffer from is coming from overeating things with protein, and a lot of them are ultra processed and keep people.
Well, the thing is, like, okay, like if our protocol had too little protein in it, then cool. Then tell me, what should I be seeing at scale? I mean, we've got Smoothie Shred's a group of like 70,000 people right now. Like, so whatever you're saying should happen as a result of protein deficiency. What you're saying or what you fear, we should be seeing that by the thousands right now. And the fact that we're not kind of tells you that there might be something wrong with that idea.
And it's a problem because we're not trained in medical school on how to even interpret that. But I love that. You can't get stronger if you're not feeding your muscles. And so therefore, as long as you're eating enough. Sometimes we see people under eating, but again, it's just if vegetables fixes that.
Well, like I say, my athletes I'm like, can you get stronger if you're not getting enough protein? I mean, some people can make the argument like, well, your nervous system can adapt and you can do that by stimulate. But here's the problem. Here's the thing. There's the advantage I have is I have professional athletes. So these aren't people that are starting and lifting for the first time in their lives after 10 straight years of being on the couch. These are folks that are already training 14 to 20 hours per week. So and they have teams of coaches and stuff. I mean, they know what their strength levels are, and they're being tested with it and challenged regularly. So those are the people that I really look at when I'm deciding, is this really for real? Is this true or not? Are these good examples and case studies that prove our point or not?
And it comes down to, a lot of times people draw the wrong conclusion about what's going on. And that's why, if you really are struggling, it's good to have someone evaluate you who can say, this looks like this is the real problem, but people often assume it's protein or something else. All right, last question,
okay.
And then I'll release you to go back to your work.
Okay.
For folks who have never exercised before, don't know anything about it, scared to death of it, all right, what kind of encouragement or tips would you give people who just want to work on starting to get themselves fitter, stronger?
Okay, there's always walking.
Yes.
There's always walking. So when people say, I've never exercised before, I tell them, actually, you have. And it's in ways that you might not realize. So when you go get your groceries, when you load or unload your car, when you pack your suitcase, when you lift it over your head, you're doing movement. So all exercises are just doing more of the things that you do every single day in your life. It's just a little bit more isolated and deliberate. So start with the walking. The second thing is, it's actually a good idea. I think this is good advice in general whenever you're trying to improve anything in your life, is start making friends that are doing the same thing that you're doing. So if you want to become a person who's into fitness, then start making friends that do fitness on a regular basis. So meet fit friends, start asking to go work out with people, find out what classes and boot camps they're doing, and sign up for those type of things. And try to, and I love something called Groupon. If you ever gone to Groupon. So Groupon is, it's a site that I used to use when I had my boot camps to market my services and get the word out there for it. And it's really caught on in the fitness community. So any companies that have a fitness solution, like a boot camp or a gym or a really cool way to work out, they advertise on Groupon and usually give some of the greatest deals I've ever seen. I usually have clients go on there. I say, I want you to go on Groupon and I want you to sign up for every single thing that sparks your interest on there. And usually what happens is there's a program, whether it's learning how to do silk scarves or going to a Pilates class or trying yoga or going to a boot camp or Zumba. Usually you'll get like a week to a month at an insane discount. And I have people sign up for 4 or 5 of those things. And that basically fills up your fitness schedule for the next 4 or 5 months for like nothing, for like pennies on the dollar. And then that gets you exposed to a lot of different exercise solutions. And I guarantee if you do like 4 or 5 different things, you're going to find something that you really, really love. And if you can get yourself addicted to one of those things, which it's not just the exercise that you get to get addicted to when you do these type of classes. It's the people, the camaraderie that you meet.
It's anything. Like pickleball. People are so into pickleball, right?
Which is a great exercise, by the way. I love pickleball for helping people get fit. It's exactly like that.
They get their teams. They're wearing costumes to the matches. They're going every day. Yeah, just and I love what you said too about other people, right? Like my mom just got into silver sneakers because her neighbor was like, hey, you should come with me. And then she said, okay. And then they started going. Or we had someone in our group who wanted to do more walking. So she started walking her neighbors. Like instead of walking dogs, she was walking elderly neighbors. Like community helps so much. And I love what you said too, finding something you like that you look forward to.
It helps. It helps really when you don't have a very clear goal for your fitness. So
just start moving.
Because a lot of you are watching right now, you're at an age in your life where you're not out to try to, find a mate or look good for any reason, versus like when you were younger, you wanted to try to look as best as you possibly can. So there's a whole lot more motivation there. You want to be able to just have a community that you want to be a part of and just do what's considered fun. And if you can make fitness the fun activity that you do, then that could be the motivation that you need to just stick with it, just because it's fun and it's social. That's
perfect. Thank you for doing this for me and for everybody. I know you all love him, and I always get requests when he does a little Wellness Wednesday or something that I have questions, bring Thomas back. So thanks for coming back. Hey, everybody. I hope you love that as much as I did. It's always great to have Thomas here to give you all of his expertise. I will be back live to answer your questions again next week, okay? In the meantime, don't forget to watch my free classes at goodbyelupus.com to get all the information you need to get better. If you need more than information, but you need my help to get better, our next Rapid Recovery group is August 22nd, and Thomas and I run this together. So if you want all of our help, support, and expertise every day, August 22nd is our next group. It's already filling up, but if you want to check it out, it's at goodbyelupus.com. I'll see